Welcome to Live Fully, an ETHA Naturals podcast.
Okay,
I'm your host, Alexander, and with me is fellow co-founder Victor Chung.
Morning.
Good morning. We also have Nicole, our producer, in the room.
Good morning.
All right. What's the topic today?
Today, we are going to talk about Kava.
Yeah, look at this.
Or Kava. Most people just kind of call it Kava. I don't know why they repeat it when it's Kava.
Sounds cooler that way.
You know, just to make sure you remember it. So yes, Kava is a plant that grows in the jungles of the Polynesian islands. Like Fiji is where we get our Kava from.
Mm-hmm.
And traditionally, people would harvest the roots of this plant. They would dry it, make it into a beverage. And traditionally, it would be when tribes would want to come together and they would kind of use this beverage to reduce anxiety, reduce stress without causing any type of like mental like fogginess. So Kava is very famous for reducing anxiety, reducing kind of just amped up energy, but not creating anything like, you know, lethargic, or you don't feel really like sedative. You kind of still feel like talkative. You kind of want to be social. So it's a really good way to
Social
bring tribes
lubrication.
together. Yeah, without kind of causing fogginess and kind of causing a detriment. So
All right.
Love that.
Well, cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
All right.
this is a half of a tablespoon of micronized kava from Fiji.
Nice. The good
Just straight
stuff.
water, so you get the full earthiness flavor of kava.
All right. Okay, let's get started, guys.
I actually really like the flavor. It's really earthy.
It's like tea, just like a good.
Ooh.
Oh, but that numbness,
I-
that numbness kicks in.
I did cheat and put a bitter blocker in this one.
Did you
to try
really?
it out.
You son of a.
Try that one.
Oh, what the? Come on, man. Come on. That's so much better.
I didn't know it would work. I literally, this is the first time I've tried it. I
It's
didn't
like
know
not
this
even the
would
same
work.
drink.
Maybe
It's so
because
good.
Let her try that. Let her try.
Well, I was chewing gum prior to the drink.
This is not even the same drink. This is not even the
That,
same
like
drink
that,
anymore.
that bitter blocker actually works really well. This is the first time I tried that bitter blocker because Kava is notorious for.
It's so sweet.
So sweet tea.
I definitely just
That's
squirt
like a
a
sweet
bunch in
tea
there.
now.
That's sweet.
Wow.
Yeah.
This bitter blocker works really well though.
That's wild. It's so different.
It's so
It's a
different.
totally different drink. I mean, I think I prefer this.
Yeah, I mean that actually tastes like Kava. This just like tastes like a sweetness bomb. It's
That's
like, what the hell?
crazy sweet. How? Oh wow, wow. But this, huh?
This is good.
You get the numbness though.
Yeah, I'm numb.
There you go.
really numb.
All right.
Numb.
Feeling kind of good.
Not yet. Maybe
About to
another sip.
make alliances between our tribes. You know, 2 days ago we watched Moana 2 because
know there was a second one.
yeah, there's a second one. It's good. It's really good. And they were celebrating, and they had ceremonial bowls of a brown liquid. They never said it was kava.
yeah.
But it's,
I mean, traditionally it's like put in a half shell of like a gourd or a coconut.
Yeah.
And so like, yeah, so it's around and like, that's generally the signal for Kava.
yep. And they were all around. I was like, kava. I was like, we're actually going to do a podcast about this. And no one in the room cared. But I cared. And here we are, about to do our own ceremony. I just wish the numbness.
The numbness is like a little bit, hard. Like it's a very local anesthetic, that kind of those properties. And most likely that might be due to, so one of the kava lactones or some of the kava lactones interfere with calcium ion channels. And so essentially this is like how your neurons communicate. If you block that calcium channel from happening, then it kind of blocks the nerves from functioning. And actually, like there was a recent drug pharmaceutical that just came out.
Did you know? Like, who knows this stuff? It's just crazy. Anyway.
Because there was headlines made because there was like an FDA approved pain medication that's a non-opioid method. And that's how that one works, is like an ion channel blocker. But apparently with pharmaceuticals, especially that one, there might be issues for long-term use because it's not really good for, I mean, unlike so like natural products, we don't really see the same because it's not, say, as strong as an ion channel blocker. But the pharmaceutical versions are so strong that they end up disrupting the body. And so that's where there's concerns on like ion channel blockers are kind of common for, I want to say it's like heart muscle issues is what can like be some of the problem.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, but I mean, Kava doesn't have that same issue because it's not a pharmaceutical. It doesn't have, say, the full strength of what pharmaceuticals can.
Yeah.
And because
And folks aren't, you're not drinking this all throughout the day. This is
generally,
special occasion or, after a hard day's work, or at a ceremony.
Yeah,
So
but I
this
mean, we
is-
don't, and I don't think, I mean, there has not been research that shows any issues with, say, long-term usage of Kava. There was a, if you do look into Kava, some of the side effects, I mean, obviously drinking too much, you'll maybe get nauseous or get kind of like, somewhat like an intoxication type where you're just kind of like feeling like a little bit more loopy too much.
No,
So
I
like,
can see that.
I mean,
Yeah.
right, you can overdose on anything essentially.
Yeah.
Like if you get too much, you're kind of like, oh. But there does not seem to be like liver issues. I know that's a big problem that comes up because if you research Kava,
there's history on it.
there's
yeah.
history of liver issues, and the reason there is that history is that while the roots can be consumed without issue, the aerial parts of the plant, so like the stems and the leaves above ground, those can cause liver toxicity. And so there was, I believe, somebody in Germany many, many years ago who was trying to sell Kava, was disappointed that they were essentially only harvesting the roots and throwing away the other parts of the plant. They're like,
And throw away the good stuff.
why don't we just mix everything together? Like
Yeah.
we'll have a lot more, tonnage to sell that biomass. And it's like, and that's what caused some of that outbreak of some liver issues. So that's why sometimes if you see some of that common research of like, oh, Kava may cause liver issues, well, just don't eat the toxic part of the plants and you should be
that
fine.
part.
Yeah. So
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild how that story or that piece of history just persists.
but it happens throughout a lot of industries and topics that
Yeah.
humans do. And it's weird how like one tiny case will also be perpetuated.
Yeah, it
almost
just
like
takes hold.
feels
And
like eternity.
That's
Yeah.
the zeitgeist. That's like what we believe, and that's
Yep.
and it's so hard to change.
Yeah. I mean, we see the same thing with testosterone replacement therapy, like causing prostate cancer, even though that was like by 3 patients who were already like pre-selected, predisposed to develop prostate cancer, and they happen to be like in this study. And so, okay, but that gets cycled, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we have amyloid plaque that's associated with Alzheimer's.
Oh, yeah.
That is not the cause of Alzheimer's, but there's medications to combat the development of amyloid plaque, which
do
has
nothing.
no effect on actually preventing Alzheimer's. But there is
Yeah,
this
did you know
research.
that?
What's that?
You've heard about the plaque issue with
yeah.
right?
Yeah, and so it's falsified research that then gets, and so it's known to be falsified. But the problem is that it just gets repeated and recited, and like referenced by other research. And then so there's like hundreds of research papers that have cited the same thing. We know it's all bogus, but yet we're still coming out with it. And in fact, there's other FDA medications that are being approved now because unfortunately, once one medication is approved by the FDA, so a medication was approved to like reduce amyloid plaque. And now if somebody else wants to make a new medication to reduce amyloid plaque, all they have to do is show that it has a similar mechanism of action to that first medication that was approved.
Based on BS research
and
data.
so right. So like there's one amount of research that is falsified. Now we can reference onto that, and so now it's just like stacking all this other bogus research on top of it, and it never gets corrected, or it seemingly never gets corrected.
Yeah,
So
it's really hard to correct. And if you do
cholesterol is the same way, and statins. It's
oh
like
my god, I still deal with
so
that
much.
stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, fats and sugars and all that. Just we can go on and
Yeah,
on and
yep.
on. But that is not the topic of today.
So-
Kava. So why are we even talking about? You know what? Before we get into all, whatever. We're gonna switch the rotation of all this. What we're trying to do is just go in through industry updates first, and then talk about some health tips that are non-kratom related. But the topic today is already kind of non-kratom related anyway. So
Yeah.
let's
But I mean-
just jump right into it.
Yep.
Let's just go into
What do you
more
want to
about-
know? What do you want to know about Kava?
I don't know a ton about Kava, just to be fully transparent. I know we did a podcast many years ago. I don't know if you remember this, when we were just doing like live broadcast on social media. Like we didn't have like a podcast. We just went online and answered questions, and we did a whole thing. We had some Kava, and I didn't have the best of experience. I think only because I like to be kind of up and like revving to go while I'm at work. And we were doing like a pretty heavy concentrated Kava, and for the rest of the day I just felt like down and like
Don't remember.
you don't remember this?
Nope.
Okay. Anyway, and at that time, you're explaining Kava to me, but I was just thinking about like I got to drink this thing that Sasha was looking at us. She's a head of sales, and she had provided some of the Kava, and she's just like, "You're not gonna like it. You're not gonna like it." The whole time, so I'm just like in my head about like I gotta drink this thing, and then you're telling me, but I was not listening at all. I know more about it, of course, since we now have a product that has Kava in it, but I'm not as educated as I probably should be. So yeah, anything that you can, I'd love to learn the mechanisms, the science behind it. You know, Kratom has alkaloids. What are the active ingredients in Kava that make it work?
Yeah, Kava produces Kava lactones. So these are compounds unique to the Kava plant, and they are more similar, I think, to like a fat soluble type mechanism. Like the lactones are, kind of more like, I don't know, lactose. I don't know if that's like a sugar of the plant. I don't know, like that side. But I have heard that Kava is more like a reverse tolerance. So you have some, then like when you kind of have more of it, or if you consistently drink it, then you need less of it to get the desirable effects.
Oh. It sounds like it operates much different than alkaloids, Kratom's alkaloids. It's not...
well, yes and no. So it's similar in Kratom where there are multiple Kava lactones, just like there are multiple alkaloids in Kratom.
Okay.
There's multiple receptors that are interacted with, so it's a complex pharmacokinetic activity, just like Kratom.
Yeah.
There are some overlap of the receptors that are activated, but not too much. So Kava lactones do interact a lot with GABA receptors, some of the serotonin receptors, dopamine receptors. There's also, I want to say it's the glutamate receptor. So like the NMDA receptor, which it's thought that ethanol also acts on the NMDA receptor, which is kind of what gives people like that sociability, kind of, wanting to like go out and talk more. And so that's where
loose. Yeah.
And so that's where there is some of the receptors that Kava interacts with are probably some of the same receptors that ethanol alcohol interacts with, but it's a different mechanism. So it's not alcohol. So it doesn't have kind of the body, doesn't have to process the alcohol and kind of get rid of it. So it doesn't cause that
the liver issue
problem that alcohol causes.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, so and that's where, so the GABA receptor, that's where we've talked about, we add GABA to our midnight dream, because GABA, when we activate that GABA receptor, it down-regulates the neurotransmission, so it kind of like makes that sedation and kind of like reduction.
Yeah, I always say it quiets the mind.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some of the complexities of pharmacokinetics in general is that a lot of these alkaloids, and which is actually true about most drugs or other psychoactive substances, seem to have kind of like a dual role. They'll either like increase activation, kind of make you more energized, or they can also make you less energized and more. And it's this weird complexity, right?
The joy of Kratom.
Yeah, and we know that, Kratom's that way, Kava's that way. And actually, I was just listening to that United Nations talk, and Jack Henningfield was talking about. Well, this is actually common with like Adderall amphetamines, right? So some kids with Ritalin, you give them Ritalin and ADHD and it calms them down. Others, if they take Ritalin, it kind of amps them up. So there is always this kind of complex dual role of everything. And we see that a lot in a lot of the Kava lactones as well. Some will compete with each other. So that's where it kind of maybe gives us more balanced effect, doesn't have such a kind of like one single effect, and doesn't have this overactivation of it like a pharmaceutical would. It's just kind of taxing that one path too much.
So why do you use Kava? Or do you use Kava?
I don't use it regularly. I do use it every once in a while. I like the social side of it. I like using Kava instead of alcohol because I get a lot of the desirable effects, like the talkativeness, wanting to be social, wanting to be out, kind of a little more boost in mood. But I don't get the impaired judgment. I don't get kind of that haziness fog from being intoxicated from alcohol. I don't get the, hangover side, or my body's obviously not having this huge issue trying to process the alcohol.
Especially when you get older too. Hangovers are rough. I remember when you're in your 20s.
I love Kratom for it though. Kratom helps amazing. Well, at least with the symptoms, right? I feel more energized, but
remember you can recover and next day you're like, oh, I feel kind of bad. Bowl of Cheerios and I'm good to go. And now it's like, all right, my weekend is shot. I would need 3 days to recover. Yeah, it's just not even worth it.
I wonder how much of that is due to our body changing, but then how much of it is just due to that mindset of when you're kind of like stubborn and younger, you're just going to push through it. You're just going to get distracted and be like, it's like, I'm going to go do this and be super excited and whatever. And I don't care. You know what I mean? I wonder how much, versus now when
you
you're
just
like,
give up.
Yeah, when you're older, you're kind of like, I can do what I want. Yeah, I'm feeling tired, so like I'm not going to go do that.
Yeah.
You're not going to push through.
I'm just looking for excuses, not to hang with my family. I could just hang back and just play some video games. Yeah, definitely. I hope Lisa isn't watching this. No, she doesn't watch the podcast. We're good. I love hanging out with my family. My kids are amazing. Always. So, okay. So yes, I think I use Kava for the same reasons that you use Kava.
Like once every 2 years?
No, I do cinnamons. I do our cinnamons every so often. Like when we were in Vegas, I did our cinnamons.
Which we're actually changing now.
Yeah.
So cinnamons were a mixture of kratom and kava extract.
Common in the kratom industry. You see that in a lot of products.
There's a lot of drinks out there that have that connection. Or
why are they doing that? Why the huge explosion of this like kava, kratom, and you see like every company doing some sort of like either drink shot thing, or I just see it so often now.
Yeah, I would say it's the effects that people are looking for from that combination of the two are going to be the replacement for alcohol along with energy. I would say it's probably like maybe like analogy is like a Red Bull and vodka, where like you want to go out and party, have fun, but then you don't want to go to sleep or you want to be tired, and so you kind of want the both side of it. Is what I would assume.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, just a little bit that I know on some of the people who started those drinks and what benefits they were looking for was kind of that mix of, well, I like kratom, but then I want a little more of that relaxation or sociability added in, just to kind of.
My question is always like, what kratom are they adding in? It's just that there's never there's no indication of what kratom they use, and we all know different varieties of kratom have different effects depending on their alkaloid profile. So what are they using? They're just saying kratom, and sometimes they don't even tell you how much. Like,
Yep. And that is always the hard concern with it.
Yeah.
I would say that
to casually drink too. It's not. It's like I don't. Like if I'm going to do like one thing, but it's like people are just drinking it throughout the day, and then they go like, I have issues. I'm starting to have like tolerance build up, and I'm getting weird effects, and sometimes it makes me feel sick. Sometimes I get headaches. Sometimes it's like, yeah, I know. There's all these varieties. Do you know what you're taking? Nope. I mean, you look at the label and you're like,
it just says kava, says kratom, and so that
or
I think
ancient botanicals. You're like, what is that?
Yeah,
Come on.
And I think that is the. I mean, kava in itself is complex. Like we mentioned, there's multiple kava lactones that have a variety of effects, and there are different strains or kind of varietals of kava that produce different concentrations of those kava lactones. So some will kind of be associated with more, numbness, local analgesic effect. Some will have more of that sociability. Some will have more of the relaxation, sedative side. So there's all sorts of varieties in the kava, and that's hard to control. So what kind are people taking?
Yeah.
And kratom is very similar, where there's multiple alkaloids that have a wide range of effects, from the energizing, mood boost, uplifting, to more of the relaxation, kind of calming side. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of complexity, and I think that's part of the. There's definitely some inconsistent results that are reported with some of those kava kratom drinks out there. I think partially because of they're just adding kava and kratom together. They don't
whatever
really know
they get a hold of.
Yes.
Yeah, we know that for a fact that happens since we're in the industry. Yeah. We do manufacturing, so we get lots of complaints from folks that want us to then replace their current manufacturer for these beverages anyway.
Yeah, and that's why though we used to have kava and kratom in our cinnamon tablets. Yeah. And we're going to be relaunching those with kava only. Yeah. Because that way because I do like to, that was what I found when I was using our cinnamons, was that, well, I kind of want to increase my kava intake right now. I'm good on kratom because, well, I have other whole leaf kratom that I was consuming throughout the day for my back pain, or I wanted to maybe use more of a sunset because my muscles were tight. Yeah. And so that's where that's where we wanted to make it easier for people to either just get only Kava or then Kava, and now they can combine with different types of the Kratom to get different effects, which I'm
Kratom
actually
of their choice, you know?
I'm really interested. So when I go and play golf, especially, I consume a lot of our sunset or recovery to kind of get that muscle relaxation, like looseness. Because when I'm twisting my back in golf, that really starts to aggravate it, and my muscles try to tighten up and protect it. So I'm really interested in actually now trying to add Kava into that mix to see, because there are Kava lactones that are associated with that muscle relaxation, with kind of that muscle tightness that it can help relax. So I'm really curious to see if that's.
So you haven't done it yet?
Not yet.
All right. Here we go. Report back next podcast. All right. I don't know what I'm going to choose, actually. I don't know. I don't know. You're right. I have the same issues as you. Like I already take Kratom in the morning for my pain issues and as my replacement for coffee. And then, so cinnamon is like, I don't know, more Kratom.
It seems more like for going out for you, because it's more like an alcohol replacement. Like whenever I've given you like samples, you're like, oh yeah, I really feel it. Like, and then we'll have like one drink maybe, and it's like, oh my God, I'm buzzed from one drink and really like stagnant. So that's, I would be careful on that side, that because of the Kava lactones and it's processed through some of the same enzymes that other alkaloids like Kratom alkaloids are processed, that generally adding Kava into it will extend the both kind of effects of other substances we're taking, and then it'll also take longer for the body to process it. So kind of be like, I'm always careful on that side. Yeah.
I did do some cinnamons once for right before a lunch with Nicole, and it was an amazing lunch.
What lunch was that?
Thai restaurant next to that San Marcos area. Yeah. Maybe the first time we were there, but I was just had a great conversation, just feeling so like, why is this like, of course it's because
all like that.
I know. Our lunches are always amazing, but that one is especially, I was like, oh, cinnamons. We had just like launched cinnamons. So like, oh, I'm liking this effect. It was feeling good. So if don't know exactly when we're going to have this podcast out, but hopefully our new cinnamons with just Kava will be available for purchase. So check it out. Let us know what you guys think. And also curious to know if you're adding Kratom, what Kratom are you adding? What varieties are working for you? All right. Okay. Any other questions about or anything we want to cover with Kava? How are you guys feeling?
I feel great.
You feel good?
Yeah, calm, not anxious. I had a little anxiety
This morning.
starting the podcast, but now I'm relaxed.
We actually should be trying to rush through this a little bit. Nicole has a little bit of a family emergency, so she needs to take off as soon as possible.
Well, not anymore. I'll just sit here.
The Kava is calming her down. Yeah. Okay. One last thing. We did want to give, sometimes we skip industry updates because they're kind of not much is happening, but this one is actually a cool one. So I'm glad Alex actually added it in. If you can go over this update, that'd be great. And I did watch it, by the way, the whole thing. Good. Yeah, it was good. It was that good.
The United Nations had a conference in Vienna about Drug Narcotics Review Board, and kind of what we've seen with the FDA failing to actually provide any kind of science that Kratom should be banned or illegal. We saw this in 2016. We then saw the FDA try to go to the international route because countries are actually the supreme law of the land is actually international treaties trump all local and federal laws of any country. So which means that if Kratom would be banned on an international stage, then the US would have to also ban it along with other countries. So that's where the FDA tried to go to the World Health Organization back in 2001, and that was not moved to critical in 2021. 2020, and that was not moved.
They probably
to
tried in 2001
review.
too. Go ahead.
And so that was not moved to critical review because there's just no science to support the banning of Kratom. I mean, yes, we have some pharmacokinetic activity that looks like opioids, but it's very different from that science. And additionally, Jack Henningfield did a great job talking about this, where because the FDA likes to look at, if we look at a new pharmaceutical substance, there is no history of use or kind of current use patterns to go off of. They can only look at the pharmacokinetic activity. But what the FDA is trying to do is they're trying to look at the pharmacokinetic activity of natural substances that have been around for millennia and trying to apply the same logic and ignore the actual history of use, which is very counter to what we should be doing, because most of the time anyway with pharmaceuticals, we'll look at it in a lab setting, clinical trials, and it will look mostly okay. But then once you deploy it in the field, you learn about the actual kind of interaction with society. You learn about the actual interaction with multiple people's different kind of body chemistry and see the actual issues arise. And
right?
And so
your
it's-
data set of this size versus a data set of this.
Exactly. Yeah. So the FDA is purposely trying to use a limited data set that doesn't really always correlate to the actual use cases.
Yeah.
But just trying to push a certain narrative. So they've been trying to do this over and over. The AKA went to the United Nations industry meeting or kind of council meeting on narcotic drug division and presented just the science of Kratom to give them an accurate understanding of what Kratom is and is not. So it was.
I loved it. I loved it
really
because
fast.
it wasn't just one person. The pacing was great.
It was a super fast pacing, very summarized, condensed. Like it's good to
Didn't
fortunately
overwhelm because it's like these are folks just trying to learn what the hell is Kratom. We've been hearing a lot of stuff about it. We just need the basics. But everyone got their 5 minutes to just go over their, not even 5 minutes probably for some folks, but all the major researchers were there and they got to share their piece of it.
Dr. McCurdy, Kirsten Smith, Marilyn Hoistis.
Boyer was there too.
Edward Boyer. And they went over everything from kind of McCurdy's research on the alkaloids and what they interact with, like the opioid receptors, serotonin, dopamine, the alpha-adrenergic receptors, kind of those big 4 takeaways. Yep. They talked about the complications where toxicologists have not been able to really find a limit of kind of mortality causation. So we don't see, we'll see people with thousands of nanograms per milliliter of kratom alkaloids in their system functioning, walking around, doing their day-to-day activities. And so we know that at least 1,000 nanograms per milliliter is not toxic. And then the complications of where a lot of the tox screening or issues that we see get reported of negative cases around kratom will show very low levels, but they typically don't test for other drugs or pharmaceuticals in their system. When they retest, then they identify, there's other issues that are more likely causing it. Kratom was kind of just, the wrong place, the wrong time for a lot of these issues. A lot of the complications around the, impairment and kind of like Kirsten Smith not seeing any kind of driving impairment or other kind of cognitive issues. I don't know. There's a good overview, pretty much everything. So, also 7-OH is very different from Kratom.
Yes.
And until just recently,
I don't know how much you wanted to get into that part of it. I found that piece very interesting.
Yeah, fortunately, I think they are now with the kind of fears system. So the adverse event reporting are actually distinguishing between 7-OH and Kratom. So up until very recently, anything if someone was calling in about a 7-OH, so a semi-synthetically altered alkaloids, like a metabolite of Kratom, which has very different pharmacokinetic effects, has very different use pattern, that was just lumped into kind of Kratom reporting of being an issue. So now that's being separated. We'll get a better understanding of what that is impacting, because Kratom natural version has been around for a very long time, has not had issues, doesn't show any kind of detriment to the society, but we have other semi-synthetic derivatives that could be causing issues.
Yeah. And 7-OH is becoming extremely popular right now. So, I wouldn't be surprised.
And so much so, too, that Johns Hopkins is also just launching a new study on 7-OH specifically. So there is a link that they sent out through the American Kratom Association and other avenues for people who are consumers of 7-OH to kind of report their use cases or they're doing screening for some type of research questionnaire.
Yeah. It's good. It'd be interesting to see. So the recording is made available. It's on YouTube. If you go to American Kratom Association's website, americankratom.org, you'll find it there, I'm sure, as well too. And yes, it's a very like specific presentation to a specific audience, but I actually find it to be like, I would recommend if you're trying to educate somebody on Kratom, on the science of Kratom, I think that's one of the best ways to do it. Just watch this thing.
100%.
It's a nice overview of everything.
Was it like an hour maybe at most?
Yeah, but you get everything.
But, yes. I mean,
and
like
you can
otherwise,
flip through parts that you want.
I mean, otherwise it typically would probably take 6 hours going through all that testimony and information.
Time.
Like it was a very short condensed with like hitting just the very summary conclusion. And you can, from there you can deep dive into all sorts of.
Yeah, whatever parts that you find interesting, then look up that researcher's paper on it and deep dive the research. And I also like the end too, because the end, the folks in the room got to ask questions, and they're the questions that we all would ask if you're new to Kratom. And the team did a really good job of tackling those questions, answering in a lot of like layman terms versus trying to get too like sciencey about it all. So yeah, really great presentation. I'm proud of the team, and they're doing good work. So good job, guys. All right. Anything else we want to talk about? Health tips. Mitochondria. Do you want to cover this, or you want to skip to next 2 minutes? One?
So yeah, we'll.
All right, we don't have time.
No,
all right,
we'll
talk about that piece for the next podcast. All right, guys. All right, we're gonna cut it short today. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode and learned a little bit about Kava and our new and improved cinnamons with Kava only. Check those out. If you guys have any questions or want us to cover any topics on future podcast episodes, feel free to reach out to us, podcast@ethanaturals.com, or find us on social media at @ethanaturals is probably the handle we use the most. Except for X, Twitter, we have @ETHA So that's the only one that's different. But we're there. Reach out to us. Let us know what you guys want us to cover. We'll do our best to do it. By the way, we found out that some of our more popular episodes are ones where it's just asking Alex questions. So the ones where we do like Ask a Founder, maybe just like firing questions.
Yeah, that's nice.
Those are the top view ones.
Kind of just like the United Nations, like little, keep it short, sweet, super
so,
fast. Like
so
right
we're gonna change. We're gonna add some of those into the
deal.
mix. So you guys hit us with all the questions, and we'll pick Alex's brain here and put him on the spot. You want prep time
Perfect.
or no prep time?
Whatever you want.
Okay. All right. Okay. By the way, guys, for this week's deal, if you want to try the new cinnamons, hopefully they're available. If not, there are many other amazing products that we have, obviously. We're doing 20% off. The code is LiveFullyPod20. The link will be in the description, and it'll be out for a bit. Anyway, check it out. Get 20% off on our website. Okay, I think we'll end it there. Until next time, I'm Victor.
I'm Alexander.
And I'm Nicole.
As always, live fully.